I died at 35 in a hospital corridor, collapsed from exhaustion after another 16-hour shift caring for my chronically ill fiancé. The doctors said it was a massive heart attack brought on by stress and chronic sleep deprivation. My fiancé Tyler wasn't there when I died. He was at home, perfectly healthy, watching television and texting his actual girlfriend about how much longer he'd have to maintain the sick charade. My name is Emma Sullivan, and I spent 12 years caring for a man who faked illness to trap me in a life of servitude. 12 years of canceled career opportunities, abandoned friendships, missed life experiences. All because Tyler convinced me he was dying and I was the only person who could save him. The medical bills were fake. The diagnoses were fabricated. The medications were vitamins and sugar pills he bought online. The whole elaborate illness was a performance designed to keep me home, isolated, and completely under his control. I only discovered the truth in my final moments, when a nurse mentioned she'd seen Tyler at a restaurant the previous week, looking perfectly healthy and dining with a beautiful woman. When I'd questioned her weekly from my hospital bed, she'd show me photos from the restaurant's social media. Tyler laughing, dancing, living the life I'd sacrificed everything to give him. He'd never been sick. And he'd despised me for being stupid enough to believe he was. When I opened my eyes again, I wasn't in a morgue or heaven. I was 23, sitting in my small apartment, staring at my laptop screen where an email from a prestigious medical research institute glowed with an offer I remembered rejecting in my previous timeline. The email was dated 3 days before Tyler's diagnosis. That had changed everything. I remembered this moment perfectly. In my previous life, I'd been thrilled about this research position. A dream opportunity to work on groundbreaking cancer treatments. But then Tyler had called, his voice weak and terrified, telling me he'd just received devastating news from his doctor. Stage 3 kidney disease. He needed immediate treatment, constant care, someone who could be there for him through the hardest time of his life. I'd turned down the research position that same day. I'd moved in with Tyler that same week. And I'd spent the next 12 years watching my dreams die while caring for an illness that never existed. This time, my phone rang right on schedule. Tyler's name flashed on the screen. I stared at it, my hand hovering over the answer button, remembering everything. The sacrifices. The exhaustion. The isolation. The truth I'd discovered too late. I declined the call. Then I replied to the research institute. I'm honored to accept this position. When do I start? Tyler called again immediately. I declined again. He called 6 more times over the next hour. Each time, I watched the phone ring and did nothing. Finally, a text arrived. Emma, please answer. Something happened at the doctor's office. It's serious. I need you. In my previous timeline, this message had sent me into a panic. I'd called him back immediately, driven to his apartment, held his hand while he cried and told me about his diagnosis. This time, I read the message and felt nothing but cold clarity. This was the hook. This was the moment he'd carefully planned to trap me. And I wasn't going to bite. I texted back. I hope everything is okay. Let me know what the doctor says. 3 minutes later, my phone rang again. This time I answered. Emma, thank God. I'm at the hospital. The doctor just told me I have advanced kidney disease. They're saying I might need dialysis, might need a transplant. I don't know what to do, I'm scared. His voice was perfect. Weak, trembling, desperate. I'd believed it completely in my previous life. That sounds very serious, I said neutrally. What hospital are you at? General Memorial. Can you come? Please. I don't want to be alone right now. I'm actually in the middle of something important for work. But I can call you later to check in. Silence. This wasn't the script. I was supposed to drop everything and rush to his side. Emma, I just told you I might be dying and you're worried about work? You said you might need treatment. That's different from dying. And you have family and friends who can support you. But I need you. You're my fiancé. We've been dating for 8 months, Tyler. We're not engaged. Another silence. In my previous timeline, Tyler had proposed 3 weeks after his diagnosis. And I'd said yes because I'd thought we were building a life together, that we were partners facing adversity as a team. Now I understood that the proposal had been part of the trap. A way to bind me more tightly to his fabricated illness. I was going to propose, Tyler said, his voice taking on a wounded quality. I had this whole plan. But now with the diagnosis, everything's different. I can't ask you to tie yourself to someone who might not survive. That's very considerate of you. Emma, why are you being so cold? I'm scared and I need support, and you're acting like you don't even care. I do care. I hope your treatment goes well. But I have a major career opportunity that I need to focus on right now. More important than me? Yes. I heard his sharp intake of breath. No one had ever told Tyler Bennett that anything was more important than him. I can't believe this. I thought you loved me. I do care about you. But we've only been dating 8 months. If you're facing a serious health crisis, you should rely on your family and close friends, not expect me to put my entire life on hold. So you're just going to abandon me when I need you most? I'm not abandoning you. I'm maintaining appropriate boundaries for an 8-month relationship. Wow. Just wow. I guess I really misjudged who you were. Maybe you did. Tyler hung up. I sat staring at my phone, my hands shaking with adrenaline, but my resolve firm. I'd just rewritten the beginning of my previous timeline. Instead of rushing to his side and sacrificing everything, I'd set a boundary and chosen myself. It felt terrifying and liberating in equal measure. Over the next week, Tyler tried everything. He called from the hospital, with increasingly dire updates about his condition. He had mutual friends reach out to tell me how selfish I was being. He sent me photos of medical equipment that I now recognize from reverse image searches as stock photos from medical supply websites. He even had his mother call me. Emma, I don't know what's going on between you and Tyler, but he's very sick and he needs support. I raised my son to be strong, but even strong people need help when they're facing something like this. I understand that must be very difficult for your family. It would be less difficult if his girlfriend wasn't abandoning him. I'm not abandoning him. I've offered emotional support. But I'm not going to put my career on hold for someone I've been dating less than a year. Career? You're choosing a job over a person? Over someone you claim to love? Mrs. Bennett, I appreciate that you're worried about your son, but this is between Tyler and me. You're making a terrible mistake. If something happens to Tyler and you weren't there for him, you'll regret it for the rest of your life. The words hit exactly where they were designed to. In my previous life, that guilt had been one of my primary motivators. The fear that if I wasn't there, if I prioritized myself, Tyler would suffer or die and it would be my fault. Now I understood it was manipulation, not reality. I'll take that risk, I said. Mrs. Bennett hung up on me. 2 weeks after Tyler's diagnosis, I started my position at the Research Institute. The work was challenging, fascinating, exactly what I'd always dreamed of. I was working with brilliant minds on projects that could actually save lives, real lives, not the fabricated emergency Tyler had created. Tyler continued his campaign. He showed up at my apartment unannounced, looking pale and drawn, leaning heavily on a cane. Emma, please. I know you're angry with me, but I'm getting worse. The doctors are saying I need someone with me full-time. I'm scared to be alone. Then you should hire a home health aide. Or ask your family for help. I need you. You're the person I love. Don't you understand what that means? I understand you want me to sacrifice my career and independence to take care of you. And I'm saying no. I could die, Emma. Do you really want that on your conscience? If you're that sick, you should be in a hospital, not standing at my door trying to guilt me into compliance. Tyler's performance faltered. Compliance? I'm asking for basic human compassion. You're asking me to give up everything I've worked for based on your claims about an illness I haven't seen any actual proof of. You don't believe me? You think I'm lying about being sick? In my previous timeline, I never would have dared voice this suspicion. The guilt would have been too crushing. I think you've shown me a lot of dramatic symptoms and sent me photos of medical equipment, but I haven't actually seen any real medical documentation. I haven't spoken to your doctors. I haven't been to any of your appointments. Because you refused to come. Because you called from places claiming to be hospitals and told me not to come because you didn't want me to see you like this. That's very convenient for someone who doesn't want their story verified. Tyler's face went through several expressions: shock, anger, calculation. I can't believe you're accusing me of faking illness. That's incredibly cruel. Show me your medical records. Let me speak to your doctor directly. Prove that what you're telling me is real. I shouldn't have to prove anything. You should trust me because you love me. Trust isn't blind faith. It's earned through honesty and consistency. And your story has too many convenient gaps. Get out, Tyler said, his voice suddenly cold. If you can't even believe I'm sick, if you think I'm some kind of manipulative liar, then we're done. I don't want someone like you in my life. Okay, I said simply. Tyler stared at me, clearly expecting me to backtrack, to apologize, to beg for forgiveness. Instead, I started closing the door. Emma, wait. You said we're done. I'm respecting that boundary. Goodbye, Tyler. I closed the door and locked it. On the other side, I could hear Tyler sputtering, trying to find words, then eventually walking away. My hands were shaking. My heart was pounding. But I'd done it. I'd broken free before he could trap me. The next morning, I woke up to dozens of messages from mutual friends. Tyler had posted on social media about his devastating diagnosis and how his girlfriend had abandoned him in his darkest hour. The post was carefully crafted to make him look brave and me look heartless. Comments poured in. People I'd known for years were calling me selfish, cruel, cold-hearted. Some people I'd considered friends said they were disappointed in me, that they'd expected better. In my previous timeline, this social pressure had been one of the factors that kept me trapped. The fear of being seen as the villain, the woman who abandoned her sick fiancé, had made it almost impossible to leave even when I'd started suspecting something was wrong. This time, I read through the comments once, then closed the app. Other people's opinions of a situation they didn't understand weren't my problem to manage. I did, however, comment once on Tyler's post. I hope you get the medical care you need. I wish you well. Short, polite, impossible to argue with. Tyler's response came 2 hours later. Thank you. I'm sorry I asked too much of you. I understand you have your career to think about. The passive aggression was thick enough to cut with a knife. But I didn't engage further. Over the next month, I threw myself into my work. The research project was groundbreaking. We were developing a new targeted therapy for aggressive cancers. Every day I came home exhausted but fulfilled, knowing I was contributing to something that might actually save lives. I made friends with my colleagues. I joined a gym. I started painting again, a hobby I'd abandoned in my previous timeline because caring for Tyler took all my time and energy. I was living my life instead of sacrificing it for someone else's manipulation. 2 months after the breakup, I ran into Tyler at a coffee shop. He was with a pretty blonde woman I didn't recognize, and he looked perfectly healthy. No cane, no pallor, no sign of the devastating illness he'd claimed was destroying his kidneys. Our eyes met across the cafe. For a moment, panic flashed across his face. Then he grabbed the blonde woman's arm and turned away, trying to leave before I could approach. Tyler! I called out. He froze. I walked over slowly. You're looking well. I'm glad to see your treatment is working. The blonde woman looked confused. Treatment? Tyler was diagnosed with advanced kidney disease a few months ago, I said, watching Tyler's face carefully. It sounded very serious. I'm relieved to see him looking so healthy. Kidney disease? The woman turned to Tyler. You never mentioned that. It's not. It was a misdiagnosis, Tyler said quickly. They got it wrong. I'm fine. A misdiagnosis of stage 3 kidney disease? That seems like a significant error for doctors to make. Tyler's jaw tightened. Emma, I don't think this is appropriate. You're right. I apologize for bringing up your medical history in public. I smiled at the blonde woman. I'm Emma, by the way. Tyler's ex-girlfriend. I'm Madison. Tyler's girlfriend. How long have you two been dating? About 6 weeks. Interesting. And has Tyler mentioned any chronic health conditions to you? Madison looked uncertain. No. He said he's been super healthy his whole life. Goes to the gym every day. The gym. That's impressive for someone who needed a cane to walk 2 months ago. Tyler's expression turned furious. Emma, stop. I'm just making conversation, I said innocently. Madison, has Tyler ever shown you medical records? Talked about doctor's appointments? Mentioned needing any kind of ongoing treatment? No. Tyler, what is she talking about? She's my bitter ex who can't accept that I've moved on, Tyler said. Emma couldn't handle the pressure when I got sick, so she bailed. Now she's trying to make up stories to justify her guilt. I pulled out my phone and showed Madison the social media post Tyler had made about his devastating diagnosis. This was 2 months ago. Stage 3 kidney disease. He said he might need dialysis. A transplant. He described it as a fight for his life. Madison read the post, her expression shifting from confusion to suspicion. Tyler, what the hell? It was real at the time. The doctors thought it was kidney disease, but they were wrong. It was just inflammation or something. Nothing serious. You posted about having a potentially fatal illness and you're saying it was just inflammation? The doctors made a mistake. Which doctors? Where? What hospital? Madison's voice was rising. Because if you actually had a health scare like this, you would have mentioned it to me. Unless, she stopped, realization dawning. Unless you're lying. I'm not lying. You're either lying now about being healthy, or you were lying then about being sick. Which one is it, Tyler? Tyler looked between us, trapped. Madison, let's talk about this in private. No. Answer the question. Which is it? The diagnosis was real, but the treatment worked faster than expected. Stage 3 kidney disease doesn't heal in 2 months, I said quietly. There's no treatment that works that fast. If you actually had advanced kidney disease 2 months ago, you'd still be undergoing treatment now. Madison took a step back from Tyler. Oh my God. You made it up. You actually made up a serious illness. No. Emma's twisting things. I'm not twisting anything. I'm just stating medical facts. I looked at Madison. For what it's worth, he's very convincing. I almost believed him too. Almost sacrificed my entire career based on his claims. I'm glad I asked for proof instead. Madison was staring at Tyler like she'd never seen him before. You were going to do this to me too, weren't you? Eventually you were going to come up with some health crisis that required me to take care of you. Give up my life for you. That's not Madison, please. We're done. Don't call me. Don't text me. Don't contact me ever again. Madison stormed out. Tyler turned his fury on me. You just destroyed my relationship. I just told her the truth. What she did with that information was her choice. You bitter, vindictive. Careful, Tyler. We're in a public place. You wouldn't want people to hear what you really think of women who don't fall for your manipulation. Tyler's fists clenched, but he was smart enough not to make a scene. You'll regret this. I'll make sure everyone knows what kind of person you really are. You already tried that. It didn't work. And I'm guessing once Madison starts telling people why she broke up with you, your story is going to fall apart completely. She won't. She will. Because unlike me in my previous naive state, she's angry and has nothing to lose. She'll tell everyone about the fake illness. And then other people might start remembering that you had a miraculous recovery. They might start asking questions. Tyler went pale. You're bluffing. Am I? I guess we'll find out. I walked away, leaving Tyler standing in the coffee shop looking like his world was crumbling. I should have felt satisfaction. Instead, I just felt tired. Tired of Tyler's games, tired of the drama, tired of the person I'd almost become in my previous timeline. But I also felt free. The next week, exactly as I'd predicted, Tyler's social media presence imploded. Madison had told her friends about the fake illness, and they'd started comparing notes with Tyler's previous girlfriends. Turns out I wasn't the first woman he'd tried this con on. There were at least 3 others who'd experienced some version of the fake health crisis designed to trap them into caretaking roles. One woman had spent 2 years nursing Tyler through a chronic pain condition that mysteriously vanished when she caught him playing basketball with friends. Another had quit her job to care for him during cancer treatment that never actually happened. A third had taken out loans to help pay for medical expenses that were really funding Tyler's vacation to Cancun with yet another girlfriend. The pattern was clear and damning. Tyler Bennett was a con artist who specialized in exploiting women's compassion and guilt. The story went viral in our local social scene. News articles were written. Tyler lost his job. His family stopped speaking to him. He became a cautionary tale about toxic manipulation and Munchausen by proxy. I watched it all unfold from a distance, focused on my work and my genuine life. I felt no satisfaction in his destruction, just relief that I'd escaped before he could destroy me. 6 months after the breakup, I was presenting my research at a major medical conference. The work our team had done was getting international attention. We'd developed a therapy that showed real promise for treating aggressive cancers, and pharmaceutical companies were interested in funding clinical trials. I was in the middle of my presentation when I saw Tyler in the back of the auditorium. He looked thin, haggard, nothing like the healthy man I'd seen at the coffee shop. After my presentation, he approached me in the lobby. "Emma, you look great. Successful. Like you're living your dream." "I am. I'm happy for you. Really. You made the right choice, walking away from me." "I know." Tyler flinched. "I was hoping we could talk. Maybe get coffee." "Why?" "Because I owe you an apology. A real one. Not the manipulative bullshit I used to pull. An actual acknowledgement of what I did to you." I studied his face, looking for signs of the performance I'd learned to recognize. But he just looked tired and genuine. "Okay, coffee." We sat in the conference center cafe, and Tyler told me his story. I grew up with a mother who only paid attention to me when I was sick. Every time I had a cold or scraped my knee, suddenly I mattered. She'd drop everything to take care of me. But when I was healthy, I was just another obligation. So I learned that being sick was how you got love and attention. That doesn't excuse what you did. I know. I'm not trying to excuse it. I'm just explaining where it came from. Tyler stared at his coffee. By the time I was in college, I'd perfected the art of the health crisis. Whenever a relationship started feeling unstable, or I needed attention, I'd suddenly have a serious diagnosis. And women would rally around me. They'd sacrifice everything to take care of me. And I felt loved. That wasn't love. That was exploitation. I know that now. But at the time, I thought it was the only kind of love I deserved. The only kind I could get. He looked up at me. "You were different though. You were the first woman who actually questioned me. Who asked for proof. Who set boundaries. And it terrified me because I realized I couldn't control you. So you tried harder to manipulate me." "Yes. And when that didn't work, I moved on to someone easier. And someone after that. Until Madison exposed me and everything fell apart." Tyler's hands were shaking. "I lost everything, Emma. My job, my friends, my family. Everyone knows what I did. I can't even get a date anymore because women Google my name and find all the articles about me. I'm sorry that happened to you, but it's the natural consequence of your choices." I know. And I'm not here asking for sympathy or forgiveness. I just wanted you to know that you saved yourself. If you'd stayed with me, I would have destroyed you. I would have taken everything you could give, and then hated you for not having more to give. That's what I did to all of them. I took until there was nothing left, and then I despised them for being the empty shells I'd created. Why? Why did you hate the women who cared for you? Tyler was quiet for a long moment. Because I hated myself. And people who loved someone like me must be weak or stupid or desperate. So I despised them for falling for it, even while I relied on them falling for it. That's incredibly twisted. I know. I'm in therapy now. Working on it. Trying to understand why I am the way I am. Trying to change. He met my eyes. I'm telling you all this because I wanted you to know that you made the right choice. Leaving me saved your life. If you'd stayed, you would have spent the next 12 years caring for fake illnesses while I took credit for your sacrifices and resented you for making them. How did you know it would have been 12 years? Tyler looked confused. I didn't. I just meant it would have been a long time. Why 12 specifically? I realized my mistake. I'd referenced my previous timeline. Just a guess. But Tyler was watching me with an odd expression. Sometimes when I think about us, I get these weird flashes. Like memories of things that didn't happen. You, older, exhausted, taking care of me. Me healthy and cruel, despising you for believing my lies. It's like seeing a life I didn't live but could have lived. A chill ran down my spine. Maybe it's your guilt manifesting as imagination. Maybe. Or maybe somewhere in some other reality, you didn't leave. And I destroyed you completely. Tyler's voice dropped to a whisper. And maybe that version of me is why this version feels so much guilt. Tyler, you're starting to sound unstable. I know how it sounds. But sometimes I'm so sure I've already done these terrible things. Like I already lived a life where I trapped you and used you and watched you die from exhaustion, while I lived the life your sacrifice paid for. He looked at me with haunted eyes. Do you ever feel like you've lived this before? No, I lied. Tyler studied me for a moment longer, then nodded. Probably just my guilty conscience. Or the therapy bringing up repressed thoughts. Whatever it is, I wanted you to know. Thank you for leaving. Thank you for choosing yourself. You saved your own life. You're welcome. I hope you actually changed, Tyler. I hope therapy helps. Me too. Because I don't want to be the person I was. The person who trapped women in fake crises and then hated them for being trapped. We parted ways after that. I never saw Tyler Bennett again. But I did hear about him over the years. He'd gotten intensive therapy, moved to a different city, changed careers entirely. He became a counselor for people with trauma-based manipulation patterns, using his own history as a cautionary tale. He never married, never dated seriously, spent his life trying to atone for the damage he'd caused. I didn't know if it was genuine change or just another performance. But it wasn't my concern anymore. As for me, I continued my research. Our cancer therapy went to clinical trials and showed remarkable success. People who would have died from aggressive cancers went into remission. Lives were saved, real lives, not fabricated emergencies. I met someone eventually. Dr. James Park, a colleague from another research institute. He was kind, brilliant, and genuinely independent. He didn't need me to take care of him. He didn't need me to sacrifice my career. He just wanted an equal partner. We dated for 2 years before getting engaged. The whole time, I kept waiting for the other shoe to drop. For some health crisis that would require me to give up everything. For some sign that this was another trap. It never came. James proposed over dinner at our favorite restaurant. Nothing dramatic, just a simple question. Will you marry me and build a life together where we both get to be ourselves? I said yes. The wedding was small, intimate, everything Tyler's trap would never have been. My colleagues came. My friends came. Even Madison, Tyler's ex who'd helped expose him, came. We'd become friends over our shared experience of almost being destroyed by the same con artist. At the reception, Madison pulled me aside. I want to thank you for that day in the coffee shop. If you hadn't told me the truth, I would have ended up like the others. You figured it out pretty quickly once you knew what to look for. Because you gave me the framework. You showed me it was okay to question him, to demand proof, to not just accept his claims based on guilt and love. Madison paused. Do you ever think about what would have happened if you'd believed him? If you'd sacrificed everything like he wanted? Sometimes. But I try not to dwell on the life I didn't live. I think about it constantly. About the life I almost had. Throwing away my career to nurse a fake illness. Being trapped by guilt and manipulation. Becoming a shell of a person while he lived the life my sacrifice funded. Madison shuddered. Sometimes I have dreams about it. Vivid dreams where I made the wrong choice and spent years being destroyed. Just dreams. Are they? Or are they glimpses of a life we avoided? Madison, you're starting to sound like Tyler. She laughed. Maybe we all have that feeling sometimes. The shadow of the life we didn't live. The ghost of who we might have become if we'd made different choices. After Madison walked away, I stood alone on the terrace, looking out at the city lights. James found me there. Everything okay? Just thinking about the life I didn't live. The choices that brought me here instead of there. Regrets? No. Gratitude. I'm grateful I chose myself when it mattered. I'm grateful I didn't sacrifice everything for someone else's manipulation. James pulled me close. I'm grateful too. Grateful that you knew your worth. That you didn't let someone diminish you. That night, I dreamed about my previous timeline. About dying in a hospital corridor, while Tyler lived my sacrificed life. About the 12 years I'd given to a man who despised me for giving them. About the research I'd never done. The lives I'd never saved. The person I'd never become. I woke up gasping, tears on my face. James held me. Bad dream. Just remembering something I forgot I knew. Want to talk about it? Not yet. Maybe someday. But not yet. Because how do you explain to someone that you've lived 2 lives? That in one timeline you died from exhaustion and manipulation. And in another you chose yourself and lived? How do you explain that sometimes you remember both lives with perfect clarity? That sometimes you're not sure which version is the dream and which is the reality? You don't. You just hold close to the life you chose and be grateful you had the wisdom to choose it. 10 years after rejecting Tyler's trap, I stood at another conference, this time accepting a major award for our cancer research. The therapy we developed had saved thousands of lives. It was being used worldwide. It had changed the landscape of cancer treatment. In my previous timeline, I would have been dead for 3 years by this point. I would never have done this research. These people would have died. But I'd chosen differently. I'd rejected the manipulation. I'd refused to sacrifice myself for someone else's fabricated crisis. And because of that choice, I'd saved not just myself, but thousands of others. That was the truth Tyler had never understood. Taking care of yourself isn't selfish. Sometimes it's the most generous thing you can do, because you can't save others if you let yourself be destroyed. At the acceptance speech, I talked about the importance of boundaries, of self-preservation, of knowing when to say no even when people tell you that saying no makes you cruel. Early in my career, I told the audience, someone asked me to sacrifice everything I'd worked for to take care of them. They made it seem like my refusal would be abandonment, like my boundaries were cruelty. And I was tempted to believe them. I was raised to think that caring for others meant erasing myself. But I chose myself instead. I chose my work, my dreams, my life. And because I made that choice, I was able to develop the research that saved thousands of lives. If I'd sacrificed myself, none of this would exist. So my message to young researchers, especially young women, is this: your dreams matter. Your work matters. Your life matters. And anyone who asks you to sacrifice all of that for their benefit doesn't love you. They're using you. Real love supports your growth. Real love doesn't require you to destroy yourself. The audience applauded. Later, several young women came up to me with tears in their eyes, saying I'd given them permission to leave situations they'd been trapped in, to choose themselves when they'd been taught that was wrong. One woman in particular caught my attention. She looked like she was in her early 20s, with the same haunted expression I remembered from my own face in my previous timeline. Dr. Sullivan, I'm in the exact situation you described. My boyfriend says he's sick, says he needs me to care for him full-time, says I'm selfish for wanting to continue my graduate studies. I've been about to quit my program to take care of him. But after hearing you speak, her voice broke. What if he's lying? What if I give up everything and it turns out he's not even sick? Ask for proof, I said firmly. Go to his doctor appointments with him. See the medical records. Talk to his doctors directly. If he's truly sick, he'll have no problem with that. If he's manipulating you, he'll make excuses about why you can't verify his claims. He says I should trust him. That asking for proof means I don't believe him. Trust is built on honesty and transparency. Anyone who tells you that verification is the same as distrust is someone who doesn't want to be verified. The woman looked at me with something like hope dawning in her eyes. I can say no? I can choose my career. You can and should say no. Your dreams don't matter less than his needs, real or fabricated. You deserve to build the life you want. Don't let anyone trap you in a life of servitude by weaponizing guilt and compassion. She hugged me then. This young woman I'd probably just saved from my previous timeline's fate. Thank you. Thank you for giving me permission to choose myself. You don't need my permission. But you have my support. After she left, I thought about the conversation Tyler and I had years ago. About his weird certainty that he'd already lived a life where he'd destroyed me. About Madison's dreams of the life she'd avoided. Maybe time wasn't as linear as we thought. Maybe somewhere, in some other universe, I'd made the wrong choice. I'd sacrificed everything for Tyler's fake illness. I'd died at 35 in that hospital corridor. And maybe that version of me, in her final moments, had somehow sent a message back. A warning. A second chance. Or maybe I'd just gotten lucky. Maybe I'd been smart enough to question Tyler's story, to demand proof, to choose myself when it mattered. Either way, the result was the same. I'd lived. I'd thrived. I'd saved thousands of lives by refusing to sacrifice my own. That was the lesson Tyler had taught me, ironically. The person who demands you destroy yourself for them will never value the sacrifice. They'll just resent you for being destroyed. And the person who truly loves you will never ask you to choose between them and yourself. They'll help you be more yourself, not less. James understood that. Our life together was built on mutual support, mutual respect, mutual growth. We both had careers we loved. We both had independence and partnership in equal measure. It was everything my relationship with Tyler could never have been, because Tyler had never wanted a partner. He'd wanted a servant he could despise. 15 years after rejecting Tyler's trap, I gave birth to twin daughters. We named them Hope and Grace. Hope for the future I'd chosen. Grace for the second chance I'd received. James was an involved father from day one. He took paternity leave. He woke up for midnight feedings. He changed diapers and sang lullabies and never once suggested that childcare was my responsibility, because I was the mother. It was such a stark contrast to the life I'd almost had with Tyler. In my previous timeline, Tyler had wanted children, but only as another way to trap me, another obligation that would keep me home and isolated. He'd wanted the image of a family without any of the actual work. James wanted the reality of partnership. And he lived it every day. When the twins were 2 years old, I received an unexpected email. It was from a woman named Carol, who said she'd been Tyler's first victim. The one who'd spent 2 years caring for him through a fake chronic pain condition. I saw your TED Talk about boundaries and self-sacrifice, she wrote. And I realized you were talking about Tyler. About the same pattern he used on me 15 years before he tried it on you. I wanted to reach out because I've spent the last decade trying to rebuild my life after what he did to me. And seeing you thriving gave me hope that full recovery is possible. We met for coffee. Carol was in her 40s now. A successful architect who'd fought hard to reclaim the career she'd abandoned for Tyler's lies. He destroyed 5 years of my life, Carol told me. 2 years caring for him, 3 years recovering from the trauma. By the time I understood what had happened, I was so far behind in my field that I had to essentially start over. I'm sorry you went through that. Don't be sorry. Be proud. You're the only woman I know of who saw through him before he could trap you. The rest of us, we all fell for it. We all sacrificed years of our lives before we figured out the truth. How did you finally realize he was faking? Carol's expression hardened. I came home early one day and found him playing basketball with friends. Full court, competitive game, no sign of the crippling pain he'd claimed kept him bedridden. When I confronted him, he tried to say it was a good day, and I was being unsupportive by questioning it. But I'd spent 2 years watching him scream in agony whenever he had to walk across a room. There were no good days that involved playing basketball. What did you do? I left, packed my things that night and moved back in with my parents. Tyler tried everything to get me back. Tears, threats, promises to get better. Claims that leaving him would literally kill him. But I was done. I knew the truth and I couldn't unknow it. Did anyone believe you? Not at first. Tyler was very good at playing the victim. He told everyone I'd abandoned him in his time of need. Some people I'd known for years stopped speaking to me. But eventually, when more women came forward with similar stories, people started to see the pattern. Do you ever wonder about the life you would have lived if you'd never met him? Carol was quiet for a long moment. Every day, I'd be 15 years further in my career. I might have my own firm by now. I might have married someone genuine and had children. Instead, I'm in my 40s, starting over, trying to rebuild what Tyler destroyed. But you did rebuild. That takes incredible strength. It takes incredible strength that I shouldn't have had to use. Tyler stole years from me that I'll never get back. Carol met my eyes. That's why I wanted to meet you. Because you didn't lose those years. You saw through him before he could trap you. You kept your career, your independence, your life. You're proof that escape is possible before the damage is done. After Carol left, I sat in the coffee shop thinking about all the women Tyler had destroyed. Carol, who'd lost 5 years. Madison, who'd lost 6 months but still had nightmares about the life she'd almost lived. The others whose names I didn't know. Who'd sacrificed careers and dreams and years of their lives for a man who'd despised them for making those sacrifices. And me, the one who'd gotten away. The one who'd lived 2 timelines and learned from both. That evening, I told James about the meeting with Carol. About the pattern of destruction Tyler had left in his wake. About how lucky I'd been to escape. Lucky? James said. You were smart. You questioned him. You demanded proof. You set boundaries when everyone told you that was cruel. That wasn't luck. That was wisdom. I stopped myself. I could easily have made a different choice. Could have believed him. Could have sacrificed everything like the others did. But you didn't. You chose yourself. That matters. I looked at James, at this man who'd never once asked me to be less than I was, who'd never used guilt or manipulation to control me, who'd built a partnership based on mutual respect rather than exploitation. Thank you, I said. For what? For being the opposite of everything Tyler was. For showing me what real love looks like. James pulled me close. Thank you for knowing the difference. For not settling for manipulation disguised as affection. For choosing a real partnership over a fake crisis. That night, I had the dream again. My previous timeline, dying in a hospital corridor, 35 and exhausted, having given everything to a lie. But this time, the dream continued past my death. I saw Tyler at my funeral, playing the grieving fiancé perfectly, crying convincingly, accepting condolences from people who thought he'd lost his beloved caretaker. And then, after everyone left, I saw him wipe away the fake tears, check his phone, and text his actual girlfriend. Finally free. Want to grab dinner? I saw him at that dinner, healthy and vibrant, laughing about how he'd had to maintain the sick act for 12 years. How exhausting it had been to pretend. How glad he was that I'd finally died so he could move on. Didn't you feel anything when she died? His girlfriend asked. Relief mostly, Dream Tyler replied. And disgust. She was so pathetic at the end, so desperate to be needed that she worked herself to death for me. How can you respect someone that stupid? I woke up crying, but this time James wasn't there. He'd taken the twins to his mother's for the weekend, giving me time to work on a research paper. I sat alone in the dark, processing the dream, the cruelty, the contempt, the truth that in my previous timeline, Tyler hadn't just used me, he'd despised me for being usable. And I understood something I hadn't before. Tyler's hatred hadn't been my fault. It had been his own self-loathing projected onto someone else. He'd hated himself for being the kind of person who'd fake illness to trap women. And so he'd hated the women who fell for it. As if their compassion was weakness rather than his manipulation being evil. The dream conversation might not have been literally real, but it was emotionally true. That's who Tyler had been. That's what I'd escaped. The next morning, I called Carol. I know this might sound strange, but I need to ask you something. When you finally left Tyler, did he seem relieved? Like part of him was glad you'd figured out the truth. Carol was silent for a moment. Yes. Actually, yes. Once the initial manipulation failed, and he realized I wasn't coming back, he seemed almost lighter. Like a weight had been lifted. I always wondered about that. I think he hated himself for what he was doing. And he hated us for falling for it. We were mirrors reflecting back his own monstrousness, and he couldn't stand looking at us. That's a very generous interpretation. It's not generous. It's just accurate. Tyler was a deeply broken person who hurt others because he was broken. That doesn't excuse what he did, but it explains it. Does understanding why he did it make it hurt less? No. But it helps me forgive myself for almost falling for it. Because it wasn't my fault. His manipulation wasn't about anything I did wrong. It was about something broken in him. After we hung up, I sat thinking about forgiveness. Not forgiving Tyler, I didn't owe him that. But forgiving myself for the version of me who had fallen for it in my previous timeline. For the Emma who'd sacrificed 12 years for a lie. That Emma wasn't stupid or weak or pathetic. She'd been compassionate and trusting and committed. Tyler had weaponized those qualities against her, but they weren't character flaws. They were virtues he'd exploited. 20 years after rejecting Tyler's trap, I was asked to write a book about my research and the philosophy behind it. The book became a memoir as much as a scientific text, weaving together my professional achievements with personal lessons about boundaries, self-worth, and the difference between care and sacrifice. I included Tyler's story, anonymized but recognizable to anyone who knew the details. I wrote about the fake illness, the manipulation, the choice I'd made to walk away. I wrote about the women he'd destroyed before me, and the young woman I'd saved at the conference. But I also wrote something I'd never told anyone except James. That sometimes I had dreams of another life where I'd made the wrong choice. Where I'd sacrificed everything and died young. Where Tyler had lived the life my sacrifice paid for while despising me for paying it. I don't know if these dreams are memories of a life I didn't live, or warnings from a version of myself that did. I wrote. But they taught me something crucial. The life not lived can be as instructive as the life lived. The person I didn't become taught me to appreciate the person I chose to be. The book was published to significant acclaim. But the most meaningful response came from readers who'd been in similar situations. Who'd been trapped by fake illnesses, manipulated by guilt, forced to choose between themselves and someone claiming to need them desperately. Hundreds of people wrote to tell me they'd left their own toxic situations after reading my book. Thousands more said they'd recognized the warning signs before falling into the trap. The book became required reading in medical schools, in psychology programs, in social work courses, a case study in manipulation and the importance of boundaries. Tyler reached out once more, years after our coffee shop conversation. He'd read the book. "I know you changed my name, but I recognize myself," his email said. "And I wanted to say thank you for being honest about what I was. Not vindictive, not cruel, just honest. You described my manipulation accurately without making it sound like you hated me. That meant something. I also wanted you to know that your book helped me understand myself better. I've been in therapy for 15 years now, and I've made real progress. I understand the pattern, understand where it came from, understand the damage I caused. I'm not dating anymore. I don't trust myself with that kind of power over someone. But I am helping other people who struggle with manipulative tendencies. You saved yourself by leaving me, but you also saved me in a way. You held up a mirror and made me see what I was. That was the beginning of real change. I'll never be someone good enough for a relationship. The damage I've done can't be undone, but I can stop it from spreading. I can warn others. I can use my brokenness to help people avoid breaking others. Thank you for seeing me clearly. Thank you for choosing yourself. Thank you for writing the truth even though it could have destroyed me. The truth was what I needed, even if it wasn't what I wanted." I stared at Tyler's email for a long time before responding. "I'm glad you're in therapy. I'm glad you're self-aware enough not to inflict yourself on someone else. I'm glad you're using your experience to help others. But Tyler, understand something. I didn't save you. You saved yourself by finally choosing to face what you were. I just refused to be another victim in your pattern. The credit for your change is yours alone. I hope you find peace. I hope you continue growing. But we won't be in contact again. I need my life to be free of your presence, even the well-meaning version of it. I wish you well from a great distance." Tyler wrote back one last time. "I understand. Thank you for the honest answer. I hope your continued life is everything your sacrifice would have prevented. Goodbye, Emma." And that was the last I heard from Tyler Bennett. 25 years after rejecting Tyler's trap, I was invited to speak at a major women's health summit about the intersection of caretaking and abuse. The room was filled with doctors, nurses, social workers, therapists, people who saw the aftermath of manipulation every day. I told them about Tyler, about the fake illness designed to trap me, About the choice I'd made to demand proof and walk away. About the women who'd come before me who hadn't been so lucky. But I also told them about the dreams. About the other timeline I sometimes saw where I'd made the wrong choice. About dying at 35 from exhaustion, while Tyler lived the life my sacrifice funded. I don't know if those dreams are real memories from another timeline, or just my subconscious processing the choice I made. I said. But they taught me something important. The life you don't live can teach you as much as the life you do. The person you chose not to become can be your greatest teacher. When I dream about dying in that hospital corridor, about Tyler's contempt for my sacrifice, about the research I never did and the lives I never saved, those dreams remind me why boundaries matter. Why self-preservation isn't selfish. Why saying no can be the most important decision of your life. Because if I'd said yes to Tyler's manipulation, if I'd sacrificed my career to care for his fake illness, I would have saved 0 lives. But by saying no, by choosing myself, I was able to develop research that saved thousands. That's the truth we need to teach young women. Taking care of yourself isn't abandonment. It's responsibility. You can't pour from an empty cup. You can't save others if you let yourself be destroyed. And anyone who demands you destroy yourself for them doesn't love you. They're using you. Real love supports your growth. Real love doesn't require you to disappear. After the speech, a young woman approached me in tears. My boyfriend has a chronic illness. He's been asking me to give up my medical residency to take care of him full-time. I've been feeling so guilty for wanting to finish my training instead of being there for him 24/7. But after hearing you speak, I called him during the break and asked to see his medical records. He refused. Said I should trust him. Said asking for proof meant I didn't believe him. What did you say? I said exactly what you said. Trust is built on transparency. If he's really sick, showing me his medical records shouldn't be a problem. And he got angry. Started yelling about how I was betraying him, how he'd always known I was selfish, how I'd regret this when he died and I wasn't there. That sounds familiar. I broke up with him, right there on the phone, because I realized that everything he was saying was designed to manipulate me through guilt. And I'm not going to sacrifice my career for someone who uses my compassion as a weapon. I hugged this young woman, this future doctor I just helped save from the trap that had destroyed Carol and almost destroyed me. You made the right choice. Trust your instincts. Finish your residency. Save the lives you're meant to save. Don't let anyone trap you in fake crises. Thank you. Thank you for speaking out. Thank you for showing me it's okay to choose myself. That night, I had the dream one final time. My previous timeline, dying in that corridor, 35 and exhausted. But this time, the dream Emma looked directly at me, across timelines, across choices, across the life lived and the life avoided. Thank you, she whispered. Thank you for learning what I couldn't. Thank you for choosing differently. Thank you for living the life I couldn't live and saving the lives I couldn't save. I'm sorry, I whispered back. I'm sorry you had to teach me this way. Don't be sorry. Be grateful. Use what I taught you. Help others avoid my fate. That's how my suffering gains meaning. Through your teaching. The dream Emma smiled, and then she faded away. I've never dreamed of her since. 30 years after rejecting Tyler's trap, I retired from active research. I was 53, healthy, fulfilled, with a career that had changed medicine and saved countless lives. James retired at the same time, and we spent a year traveling. All the places I'd dreamed of seeing in my previous timeline, but never got to visit because I'd been trapped caring for Tyler. Our daughters were grown. Hope was a civil rights attorney. Grace was an emergency room physician. They were both strong, independent women who knew how to set boundaries and recognize manipulation. I taught them well. On the 30th anniversary of the day I'd rejected Tyler's trap, I stood in my home office looking at the awards on my wall. The patents, the publications, the lives saved through research I'd only been able to do because I'd chosen myself over someone else's manipulation. James found me there, contemplative. Thinking about the road not taken? Thinking about the woman who took that road so I wouldn't have to. The version of me who died at 35, who spent 12 years in a trap, who never got to live the life I've lived. You think she's real? That other version of you. I think she's real enough. Whether she exists in another timeline or just in my dreams, she taught me everything I needed to know. She showed me what happened when I chose wrong. And because of her, I chose right. Do you think Tyler ever thinks about you? Probably not. He's in his 60s now, still in therapy, still working on his issues. He spent 30 years trying to atone for the damage he caused. But I'm not part of his story anymore, and he's not part of mine. That's good. That's healthy, I corrected. Not good or bad, just healthy. We're two people who almost destroyed each other but didn't. We both learned and grew and became different people. That's the best outcome possible given where we started. James pulled me close. I'm glad you chose yourself 30 years ago. I'm glad that choice led you to me. So am I. So am I. That night, I wrote one final addition to my book, a new epilogue for the 30th anniversary edition. 30 years ago, I made a choice that changed my life, I wrote. I chose myself over someone else's manipulation. I chose my career over someone else's fake crisis. I chose reality over someone else's performance. That choice saved my life. But more importantly, it saved thousands of other lives. The lives my research helped save. The lives of women who read my story and recognized their own traps. The lives of the next generation who learned from my example. I often think about the woman I might have become if I'd chosen differently. The exhausted shell of a person. Dying young from the stress of caring for someone who despised her for caring. That woman haunts me sometimes. But she also teaches me. She teaches me that sacrifice without boundaries is suicide. That compassion without wisdom is exploitation. That caring for others at the expense of yourself helps no one. The greatest gift we can give others is to be whole ourselves. To be healthy, fulfilled, living our purpose. Because only from that foundation of wholeness can we genuinely help others. Tyler wanted me to sacrifice my wholeness for his manipulation. And if I had, the world would have lost the research that saved thousands of lives. It would have lost the example that helped hundreds of women escape similar traps. It would have lost everything I was able to become by choosing myself. So my message 30 years later remains the same. Choose yourself. Set boundaries. Demand honesty. Don't let anyone trap you through guilt and fake crises. Your wholeness matters more than someone else's manipulation. And if you're currently trapped in a situation like mine, if you're sacrificing everything for someone who might be lying, if you're exhausted and depleted and wondering if you're selfish for wanting your own life, please hear this. Leaving isn't abandonment. It's survival. And your survival might save more lives than you can imagine. Thank you to the woman I didn't become for teaching me what I needed to know. Thank you to everyone who chose themselves and inspired me to do the same. Thank you to the next generation who will learn from our examples and make even better choices. Here's to the life lived fully. Here's to the trap avoided. Here's to choosing ourselves so we can give our best to the world. 30 years later, I still believe. My fiancé faked illness to keep me home as a housewife. He would have despised me for it. Instead, I was reborn, I left him, and I lived the life he tried to steal. That was the best decision I ever made.